Depression. What is depression and how to overcome it? Back in 2005, there was notable shortcomings in several important topics, that is, in measurement and evaluation of chronic stress and depression, so says Hamann in the research. Depression is a mental health condition which is characterized specifically by persistent feelings of sadness, hopelessness, and a loss of an interest or pleasure in activities, therefore the zeal for life. Now, in order to overcome depression, there is an understanding first off of what the symptoms are. It's very, very important to know exactly what it is. Depression can manifest in different ways for different people. So there's a wider span here that we have to be very cognizant of. But that said, the symptoms can include persistent sadness or a change in your appetite or even your sleep patterns or the times of going to bed and getting up, the fatigue that you may or may not have, feelings of worthlessness, or say a difficulty in concentration, or even on the extent or far extent of things being suicidal ideation, thinking and talking about death a lot, and so on. Depression can be caused by a combination of genetic, biological, environmental, and psychological factors. Stressful life events can also have a huge impact on a person who maybe is going through trauma or a long-term illness or even hormonal changes. Now, if we look at all of those things, a lot of those are related to the neurotransmitter imbalances in some ways, or there can be those imbalances too, which can contribute to depression. So there's a variety of causes here. Now, if we look at genetic for a moment, the reality is some people are prone to more genetically have an ideation towards depression and darker thoughts or patterns of behavior. So what we need to do in that and in all ways is to make sure we go to a medical doctor to get the diagnosis, to give them our history. If they're a medical doctor that our parents were there before, well then to make sure you have a conversation with a medical doctor, to be pushed towards a specialist, and to look for mental health counsellors and experts too. Once you have that in place, you can then start looking at your lifestyle, because lifestyle factors can contribute handsomely to alleviating or actually making depression an awful lot worse. So it's within our grasp, even if we have a genetic disposition towards being depressive in some ways, to control the outward behavior that we have, because we know our disadvantage, similar in a very simplistic way to somebody who has a more heavier body frame, heavier body type. There's a genetic disposition in some way that if we know what foods and what exercises we should do, just those two simple factors, that can change our lifestyle and we can manage our weight from that, with that known. In many ways, if we look at it from the depression, that is, from the point of view of the genetics, well, we can say, well, this is my predisposition, so I have to be extremely careful. I've got to cut out alcohol completely. I've got to cut out, shall we say, recreational drugs, because they're not going to do anything. They're going to tamper with my brain as they do everybody else, even those that don't have that genetic disposition. But there's going to be a hangover effect that's going to feed into my depression. And therefore, the thoughts that we create, that we have every living day once we have a breath going on in our lungs, therefore, that can capitulate in a very negative fashion for anybody that has that genetic disposition. So we can only look at it from an advantageous point of view. The stressful or lack of stress in our environment can also impinge upon our feelings, and even a person who does not have that genetic disposition towards depression, such as we have seen seasonal affective disorder. If you're living in certain areas of the northern hemisphere and even north of that, you're going to have daylight and darkness in an unequal way as opposed to those near the equator. And so if you're coming from one place to another and moving, the changes of that is going to possibly change the sunlight going through, or lack of going through, your eyes into your brain, and therefore disrupt your sleep-wake cycles. So it's very important to know things like that, that our environment outside are really important. Of course, with regard to climate change is happening all the time. When I record this particular video at this particular time, and then I start looking at what time it is that somebody like yourself is watching it. It may be a couple of years later. Therefore, the climate is changing. Even though climate is supposed to be measured over like 50 years plus, things are changing now with global warming. So we have to be very careful of things like that as well. To overcome depression, we can look at the medical doctors, we can go to them and give them our honest feedback on how we're feeling. That's really important. But also you can go to a cognitive behavioral therapist or an interpersonal therapist. These are often recommended anyway by the medical doctor for, say, a first time treatment of depression. Now, therapy can help you identify and challenge your negative thought patterns, which then will lead to you learning healthy coping mechanisms. Now, it's so important, pivotal, in fact, and you have that linkage with possibly getting depression, or if your environmental factors are not good, or for whatever reason you've gone through a very bad event and you feel more depressed in a longer term, it's very important that your communication is on the money, that everything is done properly, and that you relate to, be it your therapist or your doctor, in the proper manner. Also, you need or possibly have or want or are interested in medication. Now, there can be antidepressant medications, there can be serotonin reuptake inhibitors too. These can help regulate neurotransmitter levels within your brain and alleviate the symptoms. So literally the chemical balance of your brain could be distorted by the negativity and this depression, and so therefore we may need to use those in order to get us on an even keel. How long do you take this? Well, this is according to your medical practitioner, your individual. That's really important to have that conversation with them. But if you take it like for the first time, certainly it's worth having that conversation that, look, if you don't want to be on medication for longer, to say, look, if I adopt all maximum lifestyle changes here, if I educate myself, watch videos like this, and really adopt it and completely become that obsessed with regard to that, how much, what percentage, what ratio, what chances of me having depression again once I get to manage it, a depressive episode that's harmful towards me and others. Check that out. It's important to work with your dosage again, to ask those questions. Now, lifestyle changes outside or with medication are also positive and possible too. So making healthy changes can help improve the mood and your overall well-being. So doing these changes anyway, even if you're just wondering, am I depressed? It's a good thing no matter what. Now, these changes can include getting, say, regular exercise, or eating a balanced diet, getting enough sleep, even avoiding alcohol and recreational drugs. All of those things together is huge. So maybe just do one at a time, where you can begin to re-educate yourself on a new lifestyle. Because when we talk about lifestyle, we're talking about 24/7, 365 and 66 on a leap year days a year. So we are changing our whole activity level around, and it could be, and this is the next one, social people. So in our society, how we live, how we work, our lifestyle, but social support is also so important too, because if we have a strong support system, it can help us no end with depression. If we can get validation for our feelings, get observation of our feelings, then these people will allow us, be it our family or friends, to stretch and become better within our lifestyle, or to perhaps see a medical professional as per a more frequent visit. And so that if we trust these people and we bring the right people into our fold, even if our family members are not good for us, or they're making us more depressed or more anxious, more stressed, and if we push them away, number one is yourself, to look after yourself, to make sure you will survive and thrive in the longer term. It's also important to look at self-care, such as emotional well-being, and to acknowledge that we do actually have this within us, and that we have to be very careful as opposed to being reckless with our lifestyle. This includes activities such as like medication, mindfulness, deep breathing, spending time in nature, exercising, getting to sleep at the correct time. Then set realistic goals with regard to work, with regard to how much activities we actually do and we can sustain doing, so that we're not disappointed and that we're not let down with regard to our aims and our goals that are too lofty in the first place. It's important to keep connected. We had the time of the pandemic where people connected online. Now we need to connect in person it's even better. So see loved ones, go for a cup of tea or coffee with them, bring them toward your place, go and meet new people, always meeting new people. Guess what? Because old people will go away, unfortunately. They will depart, or people now and then have their own lives, so they'll go to a different country or they'll get a job promotion somewhere else. So we always need to be reconnecting and getting more people in our group and mixing with positive people towards our interests. Monitor your thoughts. Question yourself at each and every time, every hour. How am I thinking? If there's a pattern there sneaking in of depression, we have to be very careful, because at the end of the day, these are the things that we can control. Be patient with yourself. Know that your future is, yes, dictated by yourself, but if you have this predisposition towards a depressive episode, that it could be around the next corner. So be patient and welcome the love and self-compassion that you have, and hopefully others around you will have that for you too. I hope you've enjoyed watching. I hope it helps you and some other out there as well, and if you want more, just go watch them.